Certainly. Here's a rewritten version of your script that keeps the tone clear, balanced, and compelling while improving flow, structure, and clarity. This isn't an anti-meat video. We've all heard the arguments against eating meat, but the reality is, in places like the EU and US, only around 1% to 6% of people don't eat it. Meat is just too tasty, convenient, and deeply woven into our cultures for most of us to seriously consider giving it up. Plus, food is personal. No one likes being morally lectured over dinner. At the same time, we love animals. Most of us have pets, support animal welfare, and feel outraged by cruelty. Few things make the internet angrier than someone hurting an animal. Both of these things are true. We love meat, we love animals. But unfortunately, the animals we eat often live in appalling conditions. We don't do this because we enjoy cruelty. We do it because it makes meat cheaper, often just a few cents cheaper per meal. And if we were willing to pay just a little more, we could reduce most of this suffering. Disclaimer: farming is complicated. Many farmers truly care about their animals and do their best under immense pressure to keep prices low. Farming standards vary from country to country, and even from farm to farm. Reliable global data is hard to come by, but we've done our best to combine what's available and show you what it really costs to make a difference. To keep things simple, we'll use 3 broad categories to describe animal living conditions: decent prisons and torture camps. This is a rough classification, but it helps cut through the confusing labels like organic, free-range, or grass-fed. We'll get to those later. So, fellow omnivores, what would it actually cost to reduce animal suffering while still enjoying meat? Chickens. There are around 26 billion chickens alive on Earth right now, more than all other birds combined. They're often seen as unintelligent, but chickens are social, capable of problem-solving, and even show empathy. And yet, most of them live in conditions we'd consider inhumane. Eggs. About 90% of the world's laying hens live in torture camps, tiny cages where they can barely move, let alone behave like chickens. This causes extreme frustration and leads to aggression. Many farms respond by clipping their beaks, a painful procedure. In the US and Europe, reforms and consumer demand have improved things a bit, but over half of laying hens still live in cages, and here's the shocking part: this cruelty saves very little money. A dozen eggs might cost around €3.60, 30 cents each. Switching to barn systems, where hens are uncaged and have twice the space, would raise that by just 2 cents per egg. Free-range eggs, where hens can go outside, cost about 7 cents more per egg in the EU. One of the worst practices is chick culling. Male chicks who can't lay eggs are killed right after birth, around 7 billion a year, often by gassing or grinding. This happens even in organic egg production. Some countries, like France and Germany, have banned chick culling. Their farms now use scanning tech to identify the sex before hatching, increasing costs by just 2 to 5 cents per egg. So, for about 85 cents more per dozen, you can help hens live far better lives. Add another 60 cents and you help stop chick culling too. Chicken meat. Chickens are bred to grow at unnatural speeds. They gain weight so fast their bodies can't keep up. Many live in pain, unable to walk properly. Switching to slower growing breeds would add only about 9 cents to a $1.50 chicken breast in the US. About 90% of meat chickens in the EU live in overcrowded, poorly ventilated prisons or worse, improving their lives with more space. Purchase and natural light would raise costs by around 13 cents per serving. Truly decent conditions like free range with outdoor access can double the price of chicken, but chicken is so cheap that this still means just 35 cents to €1 more per serving, depending on the cut. Pigs are as intelligent and emotionally complex as dogs. They're social, playful, and aware of their environment, which makes it even more disturbing how we treat them. More than 90% of pigs live in industrial farms torture camps. They're kept indoors on concrete, in cramped conditions with no bedding. Out of frustration, they fight and hurt each other. Piglets have their tails docked to prevent tail biting. Most male pigs are castrated without pain relief to improve meat flavor. Mother pigs are kept in gestation crates, tiny metal cages where they can't turn around, for weeks or months. Imagine treating dogs like this. Let's look at the costs of reducing this suffering. Removing crates adds about 20 cents to a €2 serving of pork. Pain relief for castration, about 1 cent per kilo of meat. Improving bedding, space, and enrichment adds another 20 cents. For about 40 cents more per serving, you take pigs from torture to something closer to a prison. What about a decent life? Outdoor access for 40% of their lives, plus 3 to 4 times more indoor space, adds about 80 cents more. Only 1% of pigs in the EU live in these kinds of conditions. So, for just €1.20 more per serving, you can give a pig a life that resembles something acceptable for such an intelligent animal. Would you pay a few cents more to reduce suffering? Because, in the end, this isn't about becoming vegetarian. It's about doing a little better. If you're going to eat meat anyway, what would it cost to make sure the animal lived even a halfway decent life? Not much, just a few cents. Don't let me know if you'd like to continue this with the cows section, or want this turned into a voiceover, animation script, or infographic. Sure, here is the full rewritten text without any headings. In a smooth narrative format, this is not an anti-meat video. We've all heard the arguments against eating meat, and yet in places like the US and EU, only around 1 to 6% of people avoid it entirely. Meat is delicious, convenient, and deeply embedded in many cultures. Plus, food is personal. No one likes being judged morally for what they eat. At the same time, most of us say we love animals. Many of us have pets, believe in animal rights, and are appalled by cruelty. These two beliefs, enjoying meat and caring for animals, exist side by side. The uncomfortable truth is that the majority of animals we eat live in awful conditions. It's not because people are evil, it's because it keeps meat prices low. And yet, we could avoid most of this suffering by paying just a little more. In many cases, it would cost only a few extra cents per meal. Of course, farming is complex. Many farmers genuinely care about their animals, but they're caught in a system that demands ever lower costs. Conditions vary by country, region, and even farm to farm. Reliable data is scarce. So we've done our best to summarize the current reality using the best information available. To simplify, we'll refer to animal farming conditions in 3 broad categories: decent prisons and torture camps. These categories are generalizations, but they help us understand the bigger picture. You've probably seen marketing terms like organic or grass-fed. We'll talk more about those later. Let's start with chickens, the most numerous farmed animal by far. About 26 billion chickens are alive at any given moment, as many as all other birds on Earth combined. Despite their reputation, chickens are intelligent, social animals who can solve problems, communicate, and show empathy. But most chickens live miserable lives. For egg-laying hens, around 90% worldwide, are raised in tiny cages where they can't move freely, spread their wings, or express natural behaviors like nesting or foraging. They often suffer severe stress, and many farms respond by cutting off part of their beaks. Even in the US and EU, where some progress has been made, about half of laying hens are still in cages. This cruelty saves very little money. For example, if a dozen eggs costs €3.60 or $3.60, around 30 cents each, switching to cage-free barn systems only adds about 2 cents per egg. Free-range eggs, with outdoor access and better conditions, cost about 7 cents more per egg. Ending male chick culling, the practice of killing male chicks shortly after birth, adds another 2 to 5 cents. With new technology that scans eggs before hatching, this cruelty is avoidable altogether. Eggs from hens with decent lives cost about 85 cents more per dozen, and eggs that also avoid chick culling might cost around €1.45 per dozen. That's still cheap. Meat chickens face different but equally grim challenges. They're bred to grow so fast their bodies can't keep up. Many can barely walk and live in constant pain. Slowing their growth slightly would add just 9 cents to a typical $1.50 chicken breast in the US and the EU. 90% of meat chickens live in prisons or worse, packed tightly together in dark sheds with poor air quality, giving them more space. And light increases the cost of a serving by about 13 cents. Only about 5% of chickens live in humane conditions. That meat is more expensive, up to €1 more per serving, but chicken is already the cheapest meat and the cost difference is still relatively small. Pigs are among the most intelligent farm animals, with social and emotional abilities comparable to dogs, and yet they likely suffer the most. Over 90% of pigs live in torturous conditions: overcrowded concrete pens, no bedding, no stimulation. Piglets often have their tails docked and are castrated without pain relief. Mothers are confined in metal cages so small they can't even turn around. Improving pig welfare is surprisingly affordable. Removing gestation crates would raise the cost of a €2 pork portion by about 20 cents. Adding anesthesia to piglet castration adds less than 1 cent per kilogram. Giving pigs more space and straw bedding adds another 20 cents. So, for about 40 cents more per serving, we can give pigs significantly better lives. For truly humane pork, with outdoor access and 3 to 4 times more space, the cost rises by another 80 cents, for a total increase of €1.20. But right now, only around 1% of pigs in the EU are raised this way. Beef cattle generally have it better. Most spend 2/3 of their lives outdoors on pasture, which is fairly close to a natural life. But in their final months, many are moved to feedlots, crowded, industrial finishing areas that are either prisons or torture camps, where they're fattened as fast as possible. In the US, fewer than 5% of beef cattle have lifelong pasture access. A German study found that full pasture access increases beef prices by only 15%. That said, conditions for beef cattle vary widely depending on land availability, climate, and local traditions. So it's hard to make one-size-fits-all explanations. But it's clear that better treatment is affordable. Dairy cows have it worse. They're often confined indoors most of the year, standing on hard concrete, suffering from pain, ulcers, and joint problems. Yet again, better conditions are not that expensive. In Germany, pasture access increases the price of milk by about 10 cents per liter. If we sum it all up, upgrading the lives of farm animals from torture to decent would increase prices roughly like this: about 15% more for beef and milk, 50% more for eggs and pork, and about 100% more for chicken meat. Meat has gotten so cheap that we've ended up torturing animals to maintain these low prices. That's really what it comes down to. Food is cheaper than it's ever been in the developed world. In the US, the biggest meat-consuming country, the average person spends $337 a month on food, with $88 of that on meat, eggs, and dairy. If prices rose by 50%, that would add $43 a month, which would still only return us to the level of food spending seen in 1987, adjusted for income. In Germany, people spend about €70 a month on these foods. A 50% increase would raise that to €105. And here's the kicker: we throw away about 20% of the meat we buy. It's so cheap we don't even treat it as valuable anymore. So what can you actually do? It might feel like your individual choices don't matter, but that's not true. The market follows demand. If packaging doesn't mention animal living conditions, you can assume it's torture meat. If it does mention them, it's complicated. Some labels are strictly regulated and meaningful, while others are marketing fluff. Organic labels are often your best bet, though not all organic standards focus on animal welfare. Some include unnecessary rules, like banning GMO feed, which doesn't help the animals but makes food more expensive and appear natural. These labels often emphasize branding over impact. If you can afford it, buy organic. If you have the time and access, research local farms and buy from places you trust. And if that's too expensive, consider eating a bit less meat. Don't throw meat away. Maybe avoid the worst kinds, like factory-farmed pork, and support policies that ban the most horrific practices. There is one surprisingly ethical animal product worth mentioning: mussels. They clean the ocean, absorb carbon, and have no central nervous system, probably no thoughts, no pain, not even awareness. They're basically meat moss. Everyone should eat more mussels. You don't have to be vegan to find the current system unacceptable. The way most animals are raised is hard to justify, and it could be changed if we paid just a little more. Things are slowly improving in parts of the world, and consumers can help move the industry in the right direction. If you can afford it, vote with your wallet. If you can't, reduce waste, eat a little less, and support change. We can make life dramatically better for billions of animals. It really is that simple. Let me know if you'd like a summarized or script-ready version next.